WWE Bad Blood 2024 is behind us, and we're looking at Crown Jewel and Survivor Series. It's going to round out the PLEs for WWE this year, and it looks like we are moving the pieces and shuffling things around to prepare for 2025 in the WWE, going into Royal Rumble and then WrestleMania. So the pieces are being moved very interestingly. But before I get into the show, I got to give a shout out to Michael Cole and Corey Graves for handling the commentary for the PLE last night. They did an amazing job of mixing in opportunities to let the stories breathe, give them their big moments, hit all of the marks as far as like keeping the action as the forefront while still talking about the stories and giving us the history and all that. They talked about the last battle of Atlanta during the Hell in a Cell match, which I totally forgot, which was from Georgia Championship Wrestling. It was Tommy Rich against Buzz Sawyer. That was where they feel like the basis for the Hell in a Cell was created. And I mean, it's a huge callback. Great job for them. They mentioned the Muda scale. Crazy that Corey Graves was able to mention that in the WWE, by the way, because that would have been like blast. I mean, I don't think he would have had a job if he would have mentioned that when Vince was still around. But the Muda scale is that ranking system that was created by wrestling fans, mostly internet wrestling fans. It was the scale that had the bloodiest matches. They used A for blood loss and B for how well the imagery and the color of the match was used. The scale was based off of the Great Muda against Hiroshi Hase. And I think Muda lost like a liter of blood in that match or something like that. But the way he used the blood was a pure art form, because he was using the blood to draw himself as the underdog. And he used it as a way of like getting the crowd emotionally invested because he was losing so much blood. It was a good call from Corey Graves, man. But all around, just great commentary throughout the night. It kept the energy up, and that's what commentators should do. But they never lost track of what their focus was, which was to give everybody that's watching a chance to understand what was happening, not only in the ring, but what was happening around the WWE universe. It's a very important thing that I think a lot of commentators get lose sight of when they have the free range to kind of go off and kind of ad-lib, is they miss specific cues that are very, very pertinent to the stories that are being told in the ring. So hats off to Corey Graves and Michael Cole for doing that. I've always been critical of Michael Cole throughout my watching wrestling and stuff, but I mean, he's a great commentator. He's learned a lot, and hats off to him for that. It kept the energy up, and it was kind of like a callback. I loved those little things because it left me to study and everything like that. But let's get back to the action. And so I want to talk about what I saw at Bad Blood and my thoughts and everything about the show. I thought it was a really good show. It was a tale of two sides, however. The first part of the PLE and then the second part of the PLE. Very different vibes. And it seems to me that, I at the beginning of talking about Bad Blood, I had a prediction. I felt, as I'm sure others felt, that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, given that they had one of the hottest feuds in the WWE, it is arguably the top feud in professional wrestling. It has been going on for just about 11 months, from November in Survivor Series last year, where Drew McIntyre walked out, till the Hell in a Cell match that just happened last night. It has been the talk of the WWE. Now, Bloodline, of course, the Bloodline episodic story that has been progressing, it is a movie. It is thematic. It's got all of the beats for a major motion picture. I mean, everything. And we're going to talk about that later, but for sure, the Bloodline story carried the WWE in times of uncertainty. And right now, it is reaching a different level, if you will, as far as this Civil War goes, with the returns and just everything that they're planning out. It definitely deserves to have a top billing per se. However, for this Bad Blood 2024, I really truly felt like CM Punk and Drew McIntyre should have closed the show out. And given the fact that this was the opening match, it really, really took a lot of the energy. It sucked the energy out of the arena because it was so good, and it was one of, if not one of the top 3 Hell in a Cell matches in WWE history. It was definitely a match of the year candidate. It had everything that you would look for in this match. A lot of people expected this to be what you saw from their first encounter. But at SummerSlam, however, I love that they held that off. This built to a crescendo, right? So it started with Seth Rollins being involved and Seth barely being able to keep the two in the confines of a regular match. Then the strap match, which tied them together, so it bound them from being able to do certain things because they were tied to one another. And then when the straps came off and they got inside of a Hell in a Cell cage, they reinvented the wheel as far as what you expect from a Hell in a Cell match. And I mean, they had the bells and whistles, but each weapon had a meaning. When they took the toolbox out, it was a slight nod to Bully Ray talking about that on Busted Open, about how they didn't need a toolbox, and Punk is like, toolbox, you know what I mean? Toolbox, gotcha, But I think that the real story coming out of Bad Blood 2024, honestly, is that there is a feud that is going longer and running longer than the Bloodline saga. It is the feud between The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and CM Punk. And it is fairly obvious to me that The Rock going on last was something that was talked about, and you can argue either way. But honestly, Bad Blood's main event in 1997, when it was a part of the In Your House series, was The Undertaker against Shawn Michaels. The Hell in a Cell end of an era match with Triple H and The Undertaker, where Shawn Michaels was a special guest referee in a Hell in a Cell. It closed the show, man. There are Hell in a Cell matches that have opened up the show, that have bookended PLEs and pay-per-views alike. I get all of that, but the truth of the matter is this match warranted the closing of the show. And I get it. Cody Rhodes in his hometown, the idea of Bad Blood with the bloodline, it all kind of synced up, having The Rock come out at the end, having Jimmy Uso return, all of those things going on. I understand why you closed the show, but having CM Punk and Drew McIntyre open up the show arguably would have been the same thing with Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns opening up the show. The energy, it would have been so palpable. It would have been hard to keep that momentum up throughout the rest of the PLE. So it's a tough choice to make, but given the gimmick being the Hell in a Cell, and given the fact that this has been a series of matches between two heated rivals, then I felt, and I still feel, that it should have closed the show. Enough of that. But CM Punk and Dwayne Johnson, man, I cannot wait if we ever see those two go in the ring one-on-one verbally. I mean, it's funny because I remember when they were in the ring and Punk and The Rock were going back and forth on the mic, and Punk was trying to draw the real Rock out of his catchphrase, clowning type of demeanor that he had coming back to the WWE in 2013, 20, something like that, 11 years ago. And The Rock was in that feud with John Cena, and CM Punk got involved. We all wanted to see at that time, at least the channels that I was surfing around at that time, we all wanted to see CM Punk being a part of that match with John Cena and The Rock. And The Rock basically stiff-armed CM Punk out of the way, took the title from him, and went on to WrestleMania. It's interesting because that is a long story that has not found its conclusion yet, and I would be fascinated if they decide to go back that route. A lot of things too, a lot of pieces that are being moved around. It's really hard to figure out where they're going to go, because they started to explain the Crown Jewel title, and they said that the two champions from either brands for the men's division and the women's division were going to collide in kind of a When Worlds Collide scenario in 4 weeks. However, what I felt was interesting about that is that, you got Gunther against Sami Zayn coming up. You had Goldberg being involved in the segment where Gunther comes out, starts talking some trash about being at the Crown Jewel. What if Goldberg costs Gunther the championship? Sami Zayn wins the championship and then goes on to Crown Jewel to wrestle Cody Rhodes. I think that is a it should be considered along the lines of an interesting theory. It'll also be a way to get Sami Zayn closer to that reuniting with the Bloodline. But hey, I'm getting ahead of myself. Overall, I thought the PLE was a great show. I thought there were some things that were lackluster. I felt there were some things that could have been on Raw. As far as main events go, I thought Damian Priest and Finn Balor did a good job. I thought Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan did okay. I thought Nia Jackson and Bayley did the best they could, although there was some miscommunication there. I think overall, though, they did have to work with a crowd that were basically set up, and I think this is a crowd that's been, bred to be this way, which is the crowd naturally kind of wait for things to happen, and they know when it will happen or when it's going to happen. So that thing, they want it to matter, So it's not like they're not interested, but they're just conditioned to kind of just wait until the storyline aspect of the match kicks in to get excited. See, that's WWE's crowd is very similar to almost kind of like how some Japanese crowds are, where they're not overly super crazy. They pop for the big moments because they're waiting and they're enjoying the show. It's very like watching a show. It's like watching a movie. It's like watching a play, So you clap for the big moments, but then you sit there and you watch intuitively because you don't want to miss anything. I think the WWE crowd has been conditioned to do that, and I think that is kind of what you saw from the Atlanta crowd, because they were hot for the big moments, but they were also just very they were stoic. They were waiting for certain things to happen, and I think some of the matches affected that, because while the fans have been conditioned to pop for the big moments, the wrestlers have been conditioned to work matches off of big moments. So even or just moments period, right? So not just like a huge moment like a table spot or a big move in the middle of the ring or a kick out that wasn't, you almost bought that it was going to be a 3 count, but they work matches in ways to where significant spots are done to draw the attention from the crowd. And when the crowd is not giving you anything back, then sometimes it can take away certain momentum or certain counts from the plays from some of those matches. And I think there were some matches tonight that were in the middle of the show, specifically between Nia Jax and Bayley, that hurt from that, because they had to follow such a strong match, which was CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. But like I said, they did the best they could. The show began and ended in a very excellent way. And in the middle, like I said, there was some stuff that happened, and it was fine, but it's really hard to argue that the show didn't deliver overall, because you had 5 matches. In all 5 matches, they had something at stake. And then you had the Goldberg confrontation between Gunther, which I know is going to be very divided as far as what they were expecting from that. I don't know if you've watched some of my other videos. If you have, then you know that I predicted Goldberg and Gunther was probably going to be a reality, because I thought Gunther was going to go down a list of legends and conquer them because of what they see in Gunther and the type of performer that he is. I felt like the tag team match, though, I'm all out of order here, but I'm just trying to go over a lot of the things as I have it in my memory. I think that the tag match, the main event, it was fucking amazing. It was layered storytelling. Solo and Jacob working as a team to stay on the offense for so long, and then Cody finally sacrificing himself with a nod to Roman before he did it to take out Jacob so that Roman could finish Solo. I mean, dude, you can't get much better than that nuance. I mean, Jimmy's return and his interaction with Roman, which was actually really suspenseful, was great. And Roman deciding to help Cody since Cody helped him, and cementing both he and Jimmy as baby faces. And then The Rock coming out with that veiled reminder of I'm still here, motherfucker, was great. It was good stuff. That's where you set up the pieces and you have everything going. And that brings me to what I think about War Games. I don't know what's going to happen in Crown Jewel. I don't know if we're going to see Cody and Sammy or Cody and Gunther. I don't know if Cody's even going to have the championship, so it adds suspense to what's going to main event Crown Jewel as well. But I really feel And I felt for a while that the Rogue Bloodline was going to meet the OG Bloodline, and I felt that Cody was going to be a part of that because of the way that they're building this. But then you have Kevin Owens attacking Cody Rhodes backstage, which was another great piece of storytelling because they let the crowd put that information out. They didn't post it. They finally learned how to use the internet. The WWE learned how to make something go viral. They had a real moment there, and now there's a bunch of fan footage that's out there that's telling the story. And now people are wondering like, oh, what's this mean and what's going to happen? I mean, you can theorize that Randy Orton and Kevin Owens can both turn on Cody Rhodes for his allegiance, albeit in a temporary allegiance to Roman Reigns, an enemy of both Randy Orton and Kevin Owens for so long. Could be a reason for Kevin Owens and Randy Orton to turn their back on Cody Rhodes. And so that gives them a reason for turning on not just Cody Rhodes, but the WWE audience would then turn on them. And then some would understand and sympathize. So that brings some very interesting emotional character work to Randy Orton and Kevin Owens if that was the route that they were going. Very, very good stuff if they go that route. But yeah, so then, now with Cody having potentially Kevin Owens to deal with and then maybe even Randy Orton on the other side, I don't know if he's going to fit in this War Games scenario. But I've said for months that I felt that the Rogue Bloodline against the OG Bloodline was the way to go. I felt like Cody being added to it would make sense because of the history of War Games, and putting Cody in a War Games match where it actually makes sense that he's in would work. However, I was saying for a while that I thought Hikuleo, aka Tala Tonga, would work perfectly for this War Games scenario. I wasn't really thinking, because obviously Hikuleo being a giant and being massive and everything would work, but you need the Rogue Bloodline have not looked formidable for a while. I think that has been done by design, but I don't think it's a smart choice because most casual fans are just going to look at them as jobbers. And I get it. The one dominant performer in this Rogue Bloodline has been and always should be Jacob Fatu, because he's a monster. And he is a monster that has allegiance to Solo Sikoa. That allegiance can be temporary. It's all depending on what happens, because if you unleash Jacob Fatu without the chains, without the shackles, without being conformed to this I'll do whatever you tell me type of a style, he can be unstoppable, and they're all talking that up. And it was big props to Michael Cole and Corey Graves for cementing how serious of a threat Jacob Fatu is. So without Jacob Fatu, the Rogue Bloodline are not ready for the type of spot that they're getting on WWE and in the main event. And you know what I mean? So this is, I see where they're going with this. They're great stars. They are not coordinated to be WWE main eventers, because right now they're like I said, they're rogue, they're untrained, they were shunned. So their style is unorthodox, right? And so that doesn't that doesn't give them the upper edge. That doesn't give them the upper hand or the edge in certain matches, because you got guys like Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns. They worked so hard to get where they're at, and they have a different way about winning matches. They go a different way. They have a different style. They have a different plan of attack, and that's different than a normal main. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is they're trying to separate the idea of how what it takes to actually get to the top of the card. And even though Tama and Tonga and Solo are there, they kind of usurped that road to the top, right? So I'm trying to explain as best I can, but Cody and Roman, they worked their way to the top. So their approach is different than Solo and Tama and Tonga and even Jacob Fatu, in which they don't really know or have the tools yet that gets them up over that hump and gives them that attack mode to finish the job. They can brutalize you, they can attack you from behind, they can attack you backstage, they can do street tactics to get you, but when it comes to being in the ring, They don't have that veteran killer instinct that's going to give them the 1, 2, 3. At least that's what I am noticing. So that's the excuse to why those Rogue Bloodline members are not dominating in that sense, but they're winning tag team championships. They're up there. They're just, like if it was up to that main event, they're just not yet ready, but they're getting there. And guys like Cody and Roman, they shouldn't be easy to defeat without some kind of a heel tactic or cheating involved, right? So even though I did say that I thought that the Rogue Bloodline would win, because my theory was that Solo in a run to cower from Roman and Cody would throw the Ula Fala to the Rock. I still think that's a great idea, and I still think the Ula Fala being around the Rock and Roman having to go through the Rock to get it, and hopefully gets it at WrestleMania, and that kind of like rechristens Roman as the head of the table, a true head of the table, by beating the final boss. I think that is a great story. However, they can keep that story going, and that can be another long-standing story, and they can finish the story with Cody and The Rock. So they have a lot of different ways to go here. Ultimately, at Survivor Series, though, in order for the Rogue Bloodline to look formidable in War Games, if this is where they're going, if they're going Bloodline versus Bloodline, then The Rock has to be a part of the Rogue Bloodline. And then The Rock, it would be The Rock, it would be Solo, it would be Jacob, it would be Tama Tonga, and it would be Tonga Loa. That would be the team on one side. On the other side, you got Roman, you got Jimmy Uso, you got Cody Rhodes, and then somehow you would have to reunite Jey Uso and Sami Zayn with Jimmy and Roman, and Cody can help facilitate that. He can be the bridge that brings those two over for one night only against the Rogue Bloodline. I think it's a great story to be told there. I think after the match is all said and done, The Rock with the Ula Fala leading Roman on a quest to get the Ula Fala back from Rock, while Solo and Jacob do his bidding, is an amazing story to have. It is a good problem to have all of these superstars and not know where to shuffle them on the card, because that's a great problem for the WWE. And their pay-per-view or their PLE cards have looked good on paper, and the execution is there. I think one of the things that was missing from the Bad Blood PLE is a fast-paced match. A match to kind of break up the style a little bit, because WWE has a very methodic style, a very slow-pacing style, where everything kind of like builds to a big moment, right? And if you had like some luchadors involved, I think that would help break it up a little bit, because they all kind of wrestled a similar style, like Nia Jax and Bayley, Priest and Balor, and Rhea and Liv. All had, and then Roman and Cody in the tag match, they all had even CM Punk and Drew McIntyre had it. It was, but the only difference is with CM Punk and Drew is it was brutal. They had the brutality and mixed in with that kind of a slow pacing. So even though it was done methodical, there was just a lot of brutality. The wrench, the freaking back spot on the steps, it was gross, it was gruesome. But it was a reason for it. So that's why I felt like that should have been, because the WWE style was in every match except for CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, because they added a little twist, which was with the brutality aspect. But yeah, so the Rogue Bloodline against the original Bloodline, it can really, really take effect at Survivor Series, and especially if they add The Rock. If The Rock is ready to go, I think it'll be huge. Now with CM Punk, I think he should take a little bit of a break, but I think Drew McIntyre is going to take the break. I think Punk will probably be back, but I think, he should take a while. I mean, this was a brutal match. This took a toll on him and Drew McIntyre. Both are probably never going to be the same as the story would go. I don't know where you go with Drew after this. I do see that they are leading potentially to CM Punk and Seth Rollins. I think Seth has to deal with Bronson Reed after this. I don't know what you do with Punk, but I think Punk kind of sits on the sidelines for a little bit and gathers himself, goes to hang out with his wife, because it was a hard match. That was probably one of the better matches that I've seen in a Hell in a Cell in a long time. It was very exciting, and it really did feel like a main event. Like after that, I was like, man, that was the opening match. Like, how are they going to top that? And I did think Nia Jax and Bayley did good. I thought it was an interesting story beat to have Nia Jax and Tiffany, and whether or not she's going to cash in, kind of like play out there. I think it gives Bayley an out with the interference of Tiffany Stratton. I love that Nia got the Undertaker sit up just to look. It was like she noticed, oh, you're about to cash in on me. That was kind of a cool moment. With Balor and Priest, I think you move Priest on after this. I think Balor will always kind of be around, but I think they need to do something with Balor to kind of interject some new intensity within him. He's kind of been just shuffled around a lot, and he's kind of just in motion, but he hasn't really set in stone. I would be interested to see the Demon Finn Balor return. I think that would be an interesting way of really kind of freshening up his character and getting him into a new serious mode as a serious threat, because it's really hard to buy him as a credible challenger for a championship belt after he's been taking a lot of L's. I mean, the difference between he and Solo is that Solo hasn't been to that mountaintop, but Balor, he has been to that mountaintop, and he hasn't been back since. So there's something to be said about that. With Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan, I thought it was an okay match. I thought the Raquel Rodriguez coming out, it just wasn't executed right. I don't know if there was a miscue with the referee. I don't know if the Judgment Day are going to beat up that referee for allowing Rhea Ripley to go outside and beat the holy hell out of Dominic Mysterio with a Singapore cane like that, like a piñata with him hanging off the cage with that chain. That was an amazing spot, by the way. Completely insane. It made it look like it was an accident, and if it was an accident, there's an angel that's watching over Damien or Dominic Mysterio, but if it was intentional, that was ballsy of Dominic to do something like that, because that could have went really bad. So really insane spot. Now I'm wondering what's going to happen with Rhea. Is she going to get a partner for her to team with against Raquel and Liv? Like, who would team with Rhea Ripley at this point? I know a lot of people have been wondering if Nia Jax was going to get challenged by Charlotte Flair. Another interesting point would be if Charlotte Flair came and helped Rhea Ripley against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. I also was throwing out an idea. I thought it would have been interesting if Ruby Riott would have returned, but she's in AEW right now. I don't know for how long, but she would have been perfect because of the story there. You know, Ruby Riott and the story with Liv Morgan, Raquel Rodriguez and the story with Liv Morgan, and the story with Raquel and Rhea. I mean, there's just a whole lot of story there to talk about. Story. But at the end of the day, I don't know who right now on the WWE roster can come in and help out with Rhea Ripley in this scenario. And I guess this all leads to Raquel and Rhea, and then this gives Liv a chance to continuously defend her women's championship against someone else around the corner, whoever that may be. Maybe the return of Becky Lynch. Keep that in mind, because Liv did send Becky to go bye-bye if Big Time Bex comes back. And that'll be an interesting team with Big Time Bex and Rhea Ripley against Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. The roof would explode if Becky Lynch returned and went back after her championship and helped out Rhea Ripley. That's a good idea. And the tag match, like I said, it was a great tag match. It did its job, and it was really it was exciting. The Rock coming back out, it leaves a lot of questions up in the air, and no, like I said, nobody has been able to do a cliffhanger like the WWE. I don't like the Crown Jewel Championship. I think it's kind of a silly idea, to be honest with you, and the WWE needs no more titles. I say the same thing about AEW, so I have to call a spade a spade. Way too many titles, even if it's defended yearly or even if it's like a trophy or something. It's a very silly idea. Give the meaning to the championships that are already there, and let's focus in on that. That's just my opinion. And Goldberg, I'm not mad at Goldberg coming back. I understand why some people wouldn't like it, but hey, he's still got a match or two left in him, and why not give some of your younger guys, a guy that's going in the pantheon of champions like Gunther, a shot at defeating a legend like Goldberg. Do it in Saudi Arabia or something. It'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of exciting stuff going forward with the WWE after this PLE. Crown Jewel is coming up. I don't know where they're going with that. I would love to see Cody and the OG Bloodline against Rogue Bloodline, headed up by The Rock at Survivor Series. And it looks like it's all kind of gearing up towards that. But what do you guys think? What did you think of Bad Blood 2024? What were some of the standout moments for you? You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out. And as always, stay tuned for more.